She was walking through the forest, the air heavy with mist and the smell of wet leaves, when a soft cry reached her ears. It was high-pitched, fragile, almost human in its tone, and it made her pause mid-step. Her heart beat faster, and she scanned the trees. Shadows danced between the trunks, and the wind carried the sound closer each time she thought it might have been her imagination. It came again, louder, more urgent. She stepped carefully over roots and stones, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. The cry led her to a small clearing where moonlight barely touched the ground. And there she saw it, a tiny creature, no bigger than a rabbit, curled up in the fallen leaves. Its fur shimmered with colors she had never seen before, blues and purples twisting like liquid, and eyes that glowed faintly golden, staring directly at her as if searching her soul. It trembled and let out a soft whimper that made her chest ache. Instinctively she reached down slowly, keeping her hands open, and the creature did not run. It tilted its head curiously and pressed its tiny paw against her finger. The moment felt surreal. Her mind raced questions. Was it a wolf, a fox, something unknown? She had read about strange creatures in old books, but never imagined seeing one herself. The air around it seemed warmer and somehow alive, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. She bent closer, her hair brushing against the dew-coated leaves. The pup looked at her expectantly, and she knew she could not leave it there alone. It was too fragile, too small, and too helpless. The decision pressed against her chest. Her rational mind screamed danger. She did not know where it had come from, or what it was capable of, but something inside her urged her to act. She scooped it up gently, cradling it against her chest. The pup nuzzled instinctively, and a soft glow emanated from its fur, illuminating her face in shifting colors. She shivered with a mix of fear and awe. Holding it felt like holding a living piece of the stars. It whimpered again, and she whispered soothing words she had never spoken aloud before. Her palms were damp, her heart thudded painfully, but she could not imagine letting it go. The forest around them seemed to sigh, as if approving her choice. She wrapped it loosely in her scarf, feeling the warmth radiate from its body, and in that moment she made a promise to herself to protect it no matter the cost, even if it meant losing everything she had known. She carried the pup carefully through the winding forest paths, the glow from its fur painting the trees in shifting shades of blue and gold. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her mind raced with what she was doing, and what could happen if anyone found out. She knew she could get into serious trouble. People might call her crazy, or worse, she could lose her job or be questioned by authorities. But the pup pressed against her chest, its warmth seeping into her bones, and she could not bring herself to put it down. She finally reached her small apartment, tucked away in a quiet street, the kind of place where no one would notice who came and went. She locked the door behind her and leaned against it, breathing hard. The room felt too ordinary, too small for a creature like this, yet somehow the pup fit as if it belonged there already. She set it down gently on a blanket on the floor, and it padded around on tiny paws, exploring the corners with curiosity and caution. Its glowing eyes wide and alert, she watched it with a mixture of fear and fascination. Every twitch of its ears, every flicker of its tail made her heart jump. She realized she had never seen anything like it before. Its fur seemed to shift color with every movement, and the soft hum of energy around it made the air feel alive. She tried to calm herself, reminding herself to think clearly. She found a small bottle and some warm water. Shaking slightly, she fed it slowly. The pup lapped at the liquid hungrily, its small tongue brushing her fingers, sending shivers through her. She smiled despite the danger and whispered its name. Without really knowing if it would respond, it twitched its ears as if it understood and nuzzled against her hand. A bond formed instantly, a silent promise passing between them. She knew she was responsible for it now, and the thought made her chest tighten. The hours passed in quiet amazement. She watched it curl up in the blanket and doze off, its chest rising and falling softly. She wondered where it had come from, if there were others like it, and whether anyone would ever believe her if she told them. Her apartment seemed to shrink around the mystery of this tiny glowing being, and she realized that everything she had known about the world could be wrong, yet at the same time, nothing had ever felt more right. She sat beside it, holding her breath, afraid to move too fast and disturb the fragile trust forming between them. The night stretched on. Outside, the city lights glimmered in the distance, but in her little apartment time seemed suspended. She had crossed a line. There was no going back, and the thrill of that knowledge mingled with the fear of what tomorrow might bring. As she finally rested her head beside the pup, she whispered again, "I will protect you no matter what," and felt the warmth of its tiny body against hers, like a promise of hope in a world that suddenly seemed far larger and far stranger than she had ever imagined. The next morning sunlight spilled through the thin curtains, casting a golden glow over the small apartment, and the pup stirred its glowing fur, flickering in soft waves as it stretched and yawned. Tiny claws clicking against the wooden floor, she watched it with a mixture of awe and worry. It seemed so alive, so impossibly otherworldly, yet completely dependent on her. She carefully prepared a small meal, mixing warm milk with a few scraps. She had scavenged, not knowing what exactly it could eat, but hoping it would be enough. The pup sniffed eagerly and licked the bowl hungrily, sending little sparks of light dancing across the walls with every movement. She laughed softly, despite herself, marveling at the strange beauty of its presence. She knelt beside it, whispering gentle words, trying to learn its habits, its moods, and its language. If it had won, the pup tilted its head at her as if listening closely, and sometimes nuzzled her fingers or pawed at her wrist, making her heart clench with a protective urge. Hours passed unnoticed. The outside world faded into insignificance. She had never felt such responsibility, such urgency to keep another being safe. Every noise from the street, every knock at the door made her startle, but the pup seemed unbothered, as if sensing her tension and reminding her silently that together they could face whatever came. Her mind wandered to the danger she might be in. She had already lied to co-workers and neighbors, explaining away the nights she spent away, and the tiredness in her eyes. She had hidden the truth, but the pup had no choice. It depended on her entirely. She thought about the stories of animals sensing danger, and wondered if this creature could do more than sense. She could not be sure, but every now and then its eyes glowed brighter, and its ears twitched in ways that made her stomach tighten. She realized she was learning it, and it was learning her. A silent communication forming between them, deeper than words could express. She stroked its soft fur, feeling the warmth and light radiating through her fingers. It was fragile yet strong in a way she could not comprehend, and she knew that whatever came next, she would face it with it. By her side the bond had formed, and it was unbreakable, a tether of trust and hope stronger than anything she had ever known. She whispered softly, "I will not let anything hurt you," and the pup blinked up at her, eyes glowing like molten gold, and curled against her chest. And in that moment she understood that she had found something extraordinary that would change her life forever. The days grew heavier with tension. Every time she stepped outside, she felt eyes on her, as if the world itself suspected the secret she carried. She noticed glances from strangers, quick and curious, like they were measuring something invisible. She tried to ignore it, but her pulse raced and her thoughts spiraled back to the pup glowing softly on the blanket. As if reassuring her that it was safe for now, she watched it play and discovered new behaviors. It seemed to understand more than she expected, responding to her gestures and expressions. Sometimes it would tilt its head and blink in patterns that almost looked like a code, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. The apartment that had once felt like a safe haven now felt like a cage. Each sound from the hallway, each passing neighbor could be a threat. She moved carefully, keeping the pup hidden behind curtains and furniture, whispering to it softly, so it would not make a sound. Yet the bond between them grew stronger. Every moment it would curl up in her lap and rest its glowing head against her chest, or press tiny paws against her hand. She felt its heartbeat sync with hers, and a warmth spread through her. She realized that the pup was teaching her patience and trust in ways she had never known, and at the same time she was teaching it safety and care. They communicated without words, a delicate understanding forming in the silence, and she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Her world had narrowed to this glowing creature, and the weight of keeping it secret and protecting it filled every thought and every breath with both fear and a strange, exhilarating sense of purpose. Days turned into nights, and their bond deepened. The pup seemed to grow stronger and more aware, each movement deliberate, each glance filled with intelligence that made her question everything she had ever known about the world. She had never seen anything like it before. Its glowing fur pulsed softly with colors that shifted with its emotions, and sometimes she swore it smiled at her. When it was happy or excited, she spent hours talking to it, even though she knew it could not respond in words, yet somehow it understood everything she said. It would tilt its head or paw at her hand when she made a point, and curl up against her chest when she whispered reassurance. She began to notice small abilities she could not explain. The pup would anticipate events before they happened. It would grow restless when someone approached the door, or when the wind shifted strangely outside. She had read about animals sensing danger, but this was different. It was like the pup could read the room, see beyond what her eyes could see, and she marveled at it, trembling with awe and fear at the same time she spent nights awake watching it sleep, its tiny body rising and falling, with quiet breaths, and her thoughts wandered to questions she dared not speak out loud. Where had it come from? Who else might be looking for it? And could it survive in this world without her protection? She realized that she loved it, not just because it was helpless, but because it was extraordinary, because it challenged everything she thought she knew about life. She cleaned its small paws, fed it carefully, and whispered stories of her childhood dreams, hoping it would understand the comfort of her voice. The pup listened attentively, sometimes nuzzling her hand or pressing its glowing head against her shoulder, and she felt a fierce, protective urge rise in her chest. She would face anything for it, every danger, every obstacle, every prying eye in the world. She knew she could not keep it forever, but for now she would keep it safe and love it, and she whispered softly into the quiet apartment, "We will face everything together," and the pup blinked slowly as if agreeing, and curled tightly against her heart. A silent pact had formed between them, stronger than words, stronger than fear, stronger than anything she had ever known. One night, as the city slept, a strange sensation crawled over her skin like static electricity. The apartment felt alive, and the pup stirred on the blanket, its glow pulsing in irregular patterns. She sat up, her heart pounding in her chest, and noticed shadows flickering across the walls. Though the curtains were closed and the lights were off, the pup growled softly, a low rumble vibrating from its tiny chest, and the glow brightened, filling the room with colors she had never seen before, blues and golds, merging and twisting as if warning her. She held it close and tried to calm herself, but every instinct screamed that something was wrong outside. A branch scraped against the window and she jumped. The pup flinched and its ears twitched sharply. It seemed to sense a presence she could not see. She whispered, it is okay," and stroked its fur, slowly feeling the warmth radiate into her palms, yet the tension did not leave the room. The air felt charged, the lights flickered slightly, and a cold wind brushed her neck. Though the windows were sealed, she realized the pup was reacting to something invisible, something unknown, and the thought filled her with awe and fear. She had never felt more vulnerable and alive at the same time. She whispered softly, "Do you know what is coming?" And the pup pressed its glowing head against her chest and twitched its paws as if telling her to be ready. She moved cautiously toward the door, hearing faint footsteps from the hall. Though she knew she was alone in the building, she felt the pulse of the pup sync with hers, each thump of its tiny heart warning her of danger. She grabbed a nearby lamp and held it high, casting shadows across the walls. The pup whimpered softly but did not retreat. It glowed brighter and padded beside her, its eyes scanning the darkness with uncanny focus. She realized in that moment it was more than a creature, it was a guardian, and together they faced the invisible threat. The minutes stretched like hours. She did not know if it was intruders, the wind, or something else entirely, yet every instinct told her to trust the pup, to follow its lead. She whispered, "We are together," and the pup blinked slowly, its glow steadying as if confirming that no matter what came next, they would face it side by side. And the room felt alive with anticipation, danger, and wonder, blending into a single pulse of life that neither of them could ignore. The next morning she woke with a sense of unease, her body still humming from the tension of the night. The pup was curled up beside her, its glow softer now, but still warm against her chest. She moved quietly, trying not to disturb it, yet the anxiety clung to her like a shadow. Her phone buzzed and her boss's name flashed across the screen. She swallowed hard, knowing this call could change everything. She took a deep breath and answered, her voice steady, but her hands trembling. He spoke quickly and sharply, criticizing her for missed deadlines, distracted behavior, and unexplained absences. She tried to explain vaguely that she had been ill or dealing with personal issues, but the words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. By the end of the call he said she was fired, and the line went dead. Her chest tightened, and the apartment felt smaller. Suddenly, the walls seemed to press closer, as if mocking her failure. She sank into a chair, holding the pup close, its warmth a tiny lifeline in the storm of despair. She had always relied on her job for stability, her routine for safety, but now both were gone, and the uncertainty pressed down like a heavy weight. She stared at the pup, and it blinked slowly, its eyes glowing a soft gold, reassuring her even without words that everything would be okay. She whispered softly, "I do not know what I will do," and the pup pressed its tiny paws against her hand, curling into her lap. She realized then that the world outside no longer mattered as much as the bond they shared. The risks she had taken now seemed small compared to the love and trust reflected in the pup's glowing eyes. She fed it carefully and watched as it played for a few moments. Despite the tension, the apartment felt alive again. The pup was a reminder that life had unexpected beauty. Even in moments of loss, she began to feel a spark of determination, rising, a quiet, fierce energy that would not let despair take her completely. She would protect this creature no matter the cost, and somehow she knew that in doing so she would find a path forward. Her old life might be over, but a new one was beginning, one filled with mystery, danger, and wonder. And as she held the glowing pup close, she whispered softly, "We will face whatever comes together," and it blinked up at her, as if understanding fully, and curled tighter against her chest, a silent promise forming between them, stronger than fear, stronger than loss, and unbreakable. Evening, she decided to step outside the apartment for the first time. Since losing her job, the city streets glimmered with fading sunlight and distant neon lights. The pup perched carefully in her arms, its glow flickering softly like a heartbeat. She felt the weight of countless eyes on them, though no one seemed near yet. Every shadow felt alive. She walked cautiously down quiet streets, the pup's ears twitching at sounds she could not hear, and suddenly it leaped lightly from her arms, landing on the pavement and running a few steps ahead, then looking back at her with glowing eyes, urging her to follow. Her heart raced as she obeyed. Instinctively weaving between lampposts and alleys, the city seemed to shift, as if bending around the pup, guiding them toward an unknown destination. She noticed strange figures in the distance moving silently, their shapes humanoid but not quite human. The pup's glow intensified, its body low to the ground, and it growled softly, a warning, or perhaps a greeting. She could not tell yet. She felt no fear, only awe and anticipation. They reached an abandoned courtyard, where the pup stopped and looked back at her, its eyes blazing gold in the twilight, then forward again, leading her toward the center, where a group of towering creatures emerged from the shadows, their skin shimmering faintly like liquid silver and eyes glowing in colors that mirrored the pup's. It was impossible to breathe. Her mind screamed disbelief, yet the pup bounded forward without hesitation, and the creatures bent down gently, taking it into their arms. It leaped to them willingly, its glow merging with theirs in a dazzling display of color. She stood frozen, stunned, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. The creatures communicated without words, their gaze fixed on her, full of gratitude, recognition, and something almost like reverence. She realized in that moment that the pup was not just extraordinary. It was a bridge between worlds, and somehow they had chosen her to be its protector. Her chest tightened with awe and fear, and the realization that nothing in her life would ever be the same. Again the creatures nodded slowly, and the pup leaped into her arms one last time, its glow blending with theirs. She felt a surge of awe and love, her heart pounding as she realized she had been part of something far greater than herself, and nothing would ever be ordinary again.